I want to thank everybody who watched my last video on the detailed walk around of my Shovelhead. I hope you enjoyed that video. I've had a couple people express interest in knowing a little bit more about the conversion that I did from chain drive to belt drive. So as you can see, the chain drive system for these older bikes is quite a bit more complex than the belt drive. And in my particular case, I was getting oil leakage, which I really didn't think was major. I was getting, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 drips after every ride, which I was capturing on a board in my garage. I was getting about 4 or 5 drops after every ride before with the chain drive, wet clutch, wet primary system, and now that's pretty much been eliminated, but I still put this board underneath the bike anyway, just to be on the safe side. Now keep in mind that board is a capture of a lot of riding. I'm going to pull over here now and just show you what I'm talking about. So when I converted my rear sprocket and chain over to a new one, you know, the old sprocket was pretty well shot, and the chain was pretty well shot, so I had to put a new sprocket and a new chain on. And in the process of doing that, of course, it was a fairly labor intensive job. The outer primary had to come off and the clutch basket had to come out, and the drive pulley had to come out. And then once the inner primary was revealed, the inner primary had to come off in order to be able to get to the chain and put the new drive sprocket on and the new chain on. And in the process of putting everything back together, well, first of all, let me back up. I had a Rivera Primo clutch that came with the bike, and it was a very good clutch. There was nothing wrong with the clutch, but in the process of converting over to the belt drive, I had to go to a dry clutch, and so I put a BDL dry clutch system on the bike, and I've been very happy with it so far, I must say. But to get back to what I was talking about, when we went to put the bike back together again, the inner primary, there's a snap diameter on the motor that had begun to disintegrate right in this area here. And so when we went to put the inner primary back on with the original clutch and the original chain drive, we weren't getting a good seal on the motor, and unfortunately, you know, that was unacceptable. There is a sort of a temporary fix, for lack of a better word, for that problem by putting a gasket, you know, on the snap diameter. Well, grinding the snap diameter off completely and then putting a gasket on. But that was not really something that would have represented an ultimate fix. It probably would have been a temporary fix at best. So at that particular point in the process, I made a decision to convert over to a belted primary. And of course that involved removing a lot of oil lines, which I showed you in the schematic, and installing a dry clutch, a BDL dry clutch, and an 8mm belt in the primary. And I've been very, very happy with it so far. I really must say. I've vented the derby cover here so some air can get in and keep the belt cool. And the leakage that I was getting before is virtually gone now. Of course, I have to oil my chain now manually instead of the old system where I had a chain oiler built into the primary. That's gone now, so I have to periodically put some chain wax on the chain myself. But that's not a big deal, and like I say, there's hardly any oil drippage at all. I'll take the bike out 3 or 4 times now, and if I get one drop, it's a surprise, to be quite honest with you. So anyway, that's the story behind that, and I hope it's clear to you. There's advantages and disadvantages to both systems. If you go onto the internet and do any kind of research on this subject, there's going to be pros and cons of both systems, and it really just depends on what's important to you and what you're willing to put up with and what you're not willing to put up with. But for me, this was a good option, and I actually would recommend to most people, I guess, who are experiencing some of the same problems I was experiencing, or found themselves in a position due to repairs or upgrades on their bike where they were pretty much forced to go ahead and convert over to the belted system. I think the upgrade is just that. I think it's an upgrade, and like I say, I would highly recommend it. And this, of course, was all done professionally to guard the the integrity of the bike. So anyway, this is a Freedom Rider signing off, and you guys have a blessed day today.